Welcome to Season 3 of the Armchair Athletes on CMRU.ca.
We're here to talk the four major American sports leagues. Your favorite sports show on CMRU.ca, hosted by Terril, Taylor, Clayton, and Will.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Armchair Athletes with Clayton,
Terril,
Taylor,
and Will.
and we're doing this from a different studio, different location today, the studio being online. So audio is probably not going to be the best this episode, but it is what it is. Let's get rolling here. Let's start off with the NFL and our picks of the week. How's that sound?
let's do it.
That sounds
Let's
good.
do it.
Brady.
So I'll go first. Last week I had as my lock the Chiefs over the Patriots. Or wait, was that? Might have been.
Yeah.
That was last
You
week?
got
That
it.
was last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I assume the Chiefs won. I'm sorry. I was unaware of that.
You got it.
I was unaware of that game. Anyways, continuing on here. Upset. Actually, you know what, I'll do my upset last because we had a monumental victory for on this show. Game of the week, Lions Broncos. That wasn't game of the week material. I watched that game and it wasn't great. Upset. I had the Seahawks over the Eagles, and my 9-game upset losing streak is over. And it was my own team that it was my own team that did it for me too, which is pretty great.
Even better.
It was a good
Yeah,
game.
I'm sure we'll get into that one later on in the show.
I was gonna say
gonna-
have your picks this week, yeah.
We're
Yeah.
doing this a little later than usual, folks, so we might be a little.
Holiday vacation. The boys are pretty chillaxed right now.
Yeah.
Pretty out of schedule.
So my lock is Seahawks over the Titans. Listen, we're confident after the one win against the Eagles. I'm bringing them in as the lock this time. What could go wrong?
Nothing.
Famous last words. Upset Vikings. Yeah. Well, hopefully. Upset. I have the Vikings over the Lions here. It's actually an important game. The Vikings, I believe, are within 3 or 2 wins of the Lions, and they play them twice here within the last 3 weeks of the season. So it's a critical game. And Minnesota, they're going to need to be desperate here to even just stay in the playoff race. A win would just be huge even in that regard. So I think you're going to see a desperate Vikings team. And I don't think that the Lions, obviously, they want to win the division, right? But they've pretty much, I think, at this point got playoffs locked up. So I think that the Vikings are going to play a very good game and win this one. Game of the week here, pretty self-explanatory, I think. Cowboys and Dolphins. Actually, I shouldn't say that because most of the game of the weeks bomb when it's two good teams. There was one earlier this weekend that wasn't very good. We'll talk about that.
Okay, I'll go into my picks for this week. Last week I had Niners over Cardinals, and that one hit. Niners kind of blew them out. Cardinals did put up a good fight, though. Underdog, Broncos, Lions. That just wasn't happening. And then I would assume this is the game that you just referred to, Clayton. Game of the week, Cowboys versus Bills.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good game either. So 1 for 3. This week, though, we're turning around. I got as my lock Bills over Chargers. I don't want to say it's self-explanatory, but I feel like you can probably figure that one out. Underdog, I have Colts over Falcons. That one was a little confusing for me. I'm surprised that the Colts are underdogs in that game, but I'll take what I can get. And then
Michael Pittman's questionable.
Yeah.
I was gonna say too. I was gonna take that game, and I seen you took it first. So.
Okay. Yeah. Couple injuries, yeah, but it's the Falcons who just lost to the Panthers, so I'm not too worried about it. And then my game of the week, again, this felt pretty good. I'm pretty confident in this, but again, it could be a blowout like game of the week tends to be. I got Ravens Niners. Just two really good teams. Probably best in the NFC, best in the AFC going head to head. So
Yes, sir. last week I was the same as Terril. I picked Niners over the Cards, kind of just like a basic pick. My underdog last week was Bears Browns. Browns ended up winning, but I think it was pretty close. So take the Bears, why not? And then my game of the week was Cowboys Bills too, and it wasn't really a game of the week, but oh well. This week, my lock is Packers over Carolina, just because Carolina is just so bad, and I think the Packers, as much as they're very hot and cold, I think Love has a good game and they probably win. My underdog is the Ravens over the 49ers.
Okay.
Just because I don't know why, but yeah, I didn't want to pick them as a game of the week because I couldn't find very many other good underdogs. So I was like, well, I'll take them as the underdog because there's a chance they can win at least. And then my game of the week was Cowboys Dolphins, even though I for some reason have a feeling that it might be another blowout. If Seattle can handle the Cowboys, I think Dolphins probably can. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But
True.
Who knows? Cowboys seem to bounce back pretty well as well. So who knows how it's going to go? It's two teams that aren't good against good teams. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes, because I think both of them have bad records against teams above 500. So
They do.
Yeah.
they're both above 500 now. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But
It'll end in a tie.
maybe
Imagine
first tie of the year. There hasn't been a tie yet this year, has there?
No.
That'd be kind of funny.
That'd be funny. Last week, Rams over Commanders for my lock. That hits. I also had Broncos over Lions for the upset. I mean, on paper, I think like that's a valid pick.
I think so too.
The Broncos have been playing well until that game. So
Can't argue.
Yeah, that was bad. Yeah. Sam Laporta masterclass.
He torched him. Yeah.
As a dog. My game of the week was also Cowboys Bills, which was another sleeper. This week, my lock is the Seahawks over the Titans.
There we go.
Honestly,
I was gonna pick that, and then I just like,
I have zero faith in the Titans.
Yeah.
I just don't. Also, just don't enjoy watching them.
They're so boring.
Will Levis, like,
They're so boring to
and
watch.
turns into and just wants to track everybody, but not a fun team to watch. I don't think they can beat Hawks. My upset is the Cardinals over the Bears. It's a battle of mid, but of mid. Not even sorry. It's not the battle of it's the battle of, or it's not the battle of mid. It is the battle of. But of the bad teams, I'm taking the Cardinals over the Bears because I just like the Cardinals better. Their record isn't good, but they also didn't for half the year, so
Really fair.
team. Yeah. My game of the week is Ravens Niners. Santa,
Let's go.
all I want for Christmas is a good football game. That's the Christmas Day game, I think,
Come on, Santa. Deliver for us.
because I know it ain't happening Christmas Eve.
Nope.
Yeah, I got Ravens Niners.
Well-
All right. I think where do we want to start? Do we want to start with we start off anytime that there's this. There was a scoregami last week, guys. The Raiders beat the Chargers 63-21. It's the first time it's ever happened. And as I pointed out on the TikTok last week, I think it was, we've been very spoiled this season. That's the 8th scoregami of the season.
Sorry, I was just letting my
That's
dog
huge.
in. I wasn't just opening the door for fun. So just
That's what I thought you were doing.
yeah.
It's okay. Your dog needs to know about the scoregami too.
That's
Yeah,
true.
sure.
Yeah. #1 fan.
I mean, we want to stick on that Raiders game. I kind of wanted to talk about the Chargers a little bit. I mean, even I don't want to victory lap my hating the Chargers team outside of Herbert and Keenan Allen stuff too much, just because I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point.
Easy pickings.
But it really is. But they cleaned house. Staley's gone. bunch of coordinators, bunch of coaches, all gone. Um, in my opinion, I think the owner should also be done as well. They should try and sell the team, but what do I know about that? It's just their team they're so old. They spend a ton of money. They don't get any better. Um, and I mean, you look at this roster, how many guys are going to be there outside of Justin Herbert in like the next 2 years? Not many. Rashawn
No.
Slater, maybe.
They,
Not a lot.
to be fair, they did plan for Quentin Johnston to be, but the way he's
Well-
going, he might not be either.
I could have told him not to do that, but
Is what it is.
You weren't
I just-
on him, Taylor? You didn't like him?
Huh?
Terril, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I did not like Quentin Johnston at all. Going into the draft, out of all the dudes that got like first round hype, he was my least favorite. Between like Addison, JSN, and Flowers, he's my least favorite, and it like wasn't particularly close.
Yeah.
Give you the clairvoyant nickname. Taking
Well,
it
I've
from
said a lot
Clayton.
of other things that I was big up on DTR heading into this season. He's been terrible when he comes in for the Browns, so I don't
Yeah,
know
well,
if I
I-
deserve that title quite yet.
Yeah, well, I had a 9-game upset losing streak, and I still have the title. So
Okay, that's fair. That's
Uh,
fair.
Right.
I think,
that's true.
and
I don't
then
know
the
about
last
that
part of that Chargers thing. The last part of that Chargers thing I was gonna say was that Staley got fired, got axed.
Yeah.
It's about time. I've been very critical of him on this show here for really ever since the start of the season. It's bad play calling. He's part of the reason why they blew that lead to the Chargers, or to the Jaguars last
Yeah.
playoffs. And then it's argued too that he's the reason why they didn't make the playoffs 2 years ago now when it was that game against the Raiders. And the Raiders were playing for the tie in overtime. Staley calls a timeout to get his run defense out on the field. His run defense then got absolutely mowed through by Josh Jacobs the play later, and ended up costing them the playoffs that season.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like you said, kind of took them long enough. But I mean, yeah, this Chargers team, they might be screwed heading forwards. Outside of Justin Herbert, they just have like nobody on that team that is going to contribute to winning football.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen's getting up there in age too. He was really the only other positive on that offense. And yeah, they just got a bunch of old, injury-prone guys kind of dotted all over the place. Not a lot of talent on offense. I don't know, man. As much as I love Herbert, if he stays in Los Angeles with the Chargers, it's going to be a tough career going forward for him.
Yeah.
You could kind of tell
Did
Staley
you
was
guys watch?
done.
What's that,
Sorry, go
Taylor?
ahead. I was saying you could kind of
Did you
tell
guys watch?
Staley was done. Oh my God. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You go.
I was watching the end, like the final press conference after the game was over, and you could just tell he was done too. He just didn't. He said like 4 words the whole time. Then the final thing he said was like, "Oh, teams got blown out all the time, and it's not that uncommon."
Not
And then
like
he
that.
just walks off, and I bet you he just walked right into his car and just left. He just knew he was
Oh,
done.
probably. Clean out his office and go home.
It was
I
pretty
mean,
funny.
teams get blown out. How many teams give up 63 to a point, or a team that got shut out the week before? Probably not very many.
No.
It was
Did
it
you
was
guys
really
watch
just
the game?
no.
I watched a bit of it. Yeah.
I think I got home at halftime, and it was like what was it?
It was
21-0?
42. It's 42.
Oh,
yeah.
They're already up 40 at
so I was
half.
like, yeah, no, I'll skip this one.
You didn't think Easton Stick was going to lead the comeback? 42 and a
Didn't
half.
see it.
I
Gonna be
turned it
honest,
on.
Didn't see it happen.
I turned it on and it got to 30, and then I was like, yeah, I think this is probably safe to not
Not
watch.
worth it.
Yeah.
Better things to do with your time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I made the joke last week, but Easton Stick is a name that should be in hockey. And after last week, I'm also convinced they should be playing hockey. I'm even more convinced.
Maybe he's got a better chance. Who knows? Do we want to? I mean, listen, I'm more than happy to move on to the Seahawks.
Still,
Terrell,
I will gladly
take-
talk about them.
bomb radio time.
take it away, Terrill.
I mean, if we didn't win that game, that would have been so disappointing. But that last drive from Drew Lock, I think, is where we should probably be focusing on.
Yeah,
Um, the first two throws to DK had me a little worried. I can't lie. Um, he threw that like kind of crosser over the middle, and it was way out in front of DK, and DK had to dive to catch it, and he probably would have. I mean, on the broadcast, they said he might have scored a touchdown if that ball was more accurate, and I was like, no, no way. But then watching it back, I was like, oh, he might have been able to. Then the other one was the catch on Bradbury where they were both kind of falling on the ground, and DK just like picked it up off Bradbury's leg. Um, just two really, really not great throws. But you made up for it. I mean, that first throw to DK down the sideline, like, couldn't have placed it any better. Couldn't have froze time and walked over and handed it to him. It was just like perfect location. It was just a beautiful throw. And then, I mean, again, that JSN throw couldn't have been
Yeah.
any better. And obviously, JSN had that. That was like an absurd catch, just right on the fingertips. Um,
yep,
I was just, I was so excited. Then the other thing is on the, I believe it was that final DK throw down the sideline. Jalen Carter got pancaked by Damian Lewis, and that had me. I was pretty excited watching that back. Um, I mean, do you have any other thoughts about that final drive? I thought it was great stuff from Drew Lock.
well, I saw the highlights of the game, but I guess I was maybe a little bit of a bad fan on Monday. Wasn't watching the game. Of course, the one game that I'm not watching, they snapped the losing streak, and they snapped my losing streak as well.
Gonna have to
Um,
keep not watching.
Yeah.
I'm
but
superstitious.
hey,
Bad
I had a
fan
good
is a good fan now.
I had a
Bad
good
fan.
reason not to watch. I had free tickets to a Flames game 5 rows up. I'm not gonna turn that down.
Should have been
um,
watching both. Should have been on the phone.
yeah, yeah. So, um, but I will say from what I saw from the highlights, looked like Julian Love had an amazing game too. 2 picks, and I don't know if you saw Terril. There was a clip from this summer, when Julian Love was still with the uh,
Giants
Giants, yeah. And he
talking about
said that,
Sirianni.
yeah, he said
Yeah,
something along the lines of that Sirianni's just kind of a guy there. He doesn't really do much. And you know what? He backed up his trash talk this week.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Sirianni's a great coach still. I think it's just that the offensive and defensive coordinators in Philly aren't quite the same as they were last year. But it is a great clip to pull up after that game. It
And
good stuff.
and I mean, I'm gonna echo what you basically said about that game-winning drive. I did see all the highlights from it. James Bradbury got cooked on that final
Oh,
drive.
dude, ridiculous.
Uh, and yeah, what a throw that final one was there to JSN, and
That was
amazing
nasty.
catch. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw as well, there was a catch that JSN made in the Rose Bowl, I believe last year. It was
Yeah,
like
same
some
same
kind of,
thing,
I don't know if it
basically.
was a game-winning touchdown or not, but it was a touchdown and it looked identical.
I think it
hmm
was a game-winning one.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's ice in the veins. I
Yeah.
I
mean,
mean, you had CJ Stroud to Drew Lock, but it was pretty close. It looked pretty close.
I don't know. One of them did it in the
Comparable.
NFL. One of them did it in college. Therefore,
True.
I mean,
And he
Drew
flexed
Lock's
the
better.
backpack celebration too,
That's
which was
true.
pretty sick.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So,
Um,
what are you guys' thoughts on the quarterback situation then with Seattle? Drew Lock, what do you guys think?
You read my mind, Well, I was just gonna ask Terrell that should we start Drew Lock this weekend instead of Geno Smith, Terrell?
here, okay. I was kind of hoping everyone else would give their answer first because I have a
I'll give my
stat that I
answer
want
short
to.
and sweet. Damn right they should.
Okay.
I think he will be better. He's younger than Gino. He doesn't look much different than Gino this year. Obviously, Gino was better last year. He played his first game, like full game, since he played with the Broncos, and he looked good. Not fantastic, like not unbelievable, but we also have to realize that he's played one game. I think he's just a more athletic, just younger version of Gino, in my opinion, at least from watching that game. He had struggles in Denver, and I think like what the announcers were saying in the game, like he's had a lot of like growing up to do because I think he thought he was the guy when he went
hmm
to Denver and then struggled, so they just kind of let him go kind of thing. And then now I think that he's in Seattle and he's had a year kind of competing for the second spot. I think he should start, but that's just me.
Who wants to go next? I'll go last because I have thoughts.
I'm gonna
Why not give
say
him a shot? I think he showed you what he can do last week, and like you said, it's not like Gino has been better this year. Like what he's had a game or two, but overall hasn't really shown anything to make you say Gino has to be the guy. You know?
I'm gonna say you play him this weekend. I think you give him the game this weekend. Now, if he doesn't play good, I think then you go back to Gino. But I think from what I seen last weekend, or from I guess the highlights I saw, seemed to play a very good game. And I mean, I think you continue the vibes from last week onto the next week.
Okay. I don't disagree. I'm kind of between the two. And I know that I've been a Geno agenda pusher on the show, but the stat that I found is that in games where both of our starting tackles are healthy, which is Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, and then Geno's starting, he has a .227 EPA per play and a 53.5% success rate. And the current leader in the NFL, which is the 49ers, is .205 EPA per play and 51% success rate. So when we have both our starting tackles and Geno's in, we have for EPA per play and success rate better offense than the best in the NFL. So now, granted, it's a very small sample size just because they haven't. Abe Lucas has been out a ton. Same with Charles Cross, so they just hasn't been a lot of crossover between the two guys. But I mean, when they're all on the field together, it's been really, really successful stuff. And I think Geno can probably operate the offense at a higher level than Drew Lock, with assuming everyone's healthy. But would I be mad if they started Drew Lock in Tennessee? Not really. I think both guys are capable, and I think both of them can lead to wins. I just think I'd still probably rather start Geno, assuming everybody's healthy.
And what do you think of Jamal Adams being? It sounded like he was healthy scratch before the game. It's very weird, right? I've seen people on Twitter. I've seen a couple people say that the report was he was healthy scratched, but Pete Carroll's press conference, he was like, "Oh, we can't wait to have Jamal Adams back on the field," which was before the news had come out. So, what do you think, Terril? Because the last game that we saw Jamal Adams in, we talked about it last week. He was not very good in that game.
He was not. And I mean, after this game with Julian Love, where really the two things, or the biggest thing that Jamal Adams is bad at is just coverage and being rangy in coverage. And Julian Love on that final play went from like midfield to the sideline in a few seconds to make that pick. So, I mean, at this point, I think it's kind of Julian Love's spot to lose.
Yeah.
And I love Jamal. I think he's a great player, but I just don't know if he fits that safety role for us. Now, I have it down in the document. I've talked about it before. Bobby Wagner's out there. He gets picked on every play. Send him to the bench. Put Jamal Adams in at linebacker. Bobby Wagner should not be on the field anymore, as far as I'm concerned. He has looked terrible in coverage when he's out there. Now, granted, against the run, he's still great. That's kind of his bright spot as a player. But yeah, anytime the ball goes over the middle, he just isn't quite quick enough to make stops like he used to. And teams pick on him. So I think Jamal is, at the very least, more athletic still than Bobby Wagner is. So I think he could probably make some of those plays over the middle. But yeah, at this point, I'd rather see Julian Love starting at strong safety.
What else do you got here? Because I do see a point that I want to bring up too that I seen.
Okay.
Nick Sirianni, he admitted post game that the final throw to AJ Brown, the one that was picked by Julian Love, they were trying to draw a defensive PI call, which I mean, I don't think that should. I don't know. I don't know if that should be the strategy.
No.
Yeah, I don't understand the game-winning play. Let's go to get a penalty. I mean, you see that in basketball too, where guys will like flop mid-shot to try and get the foul, but it's like, okay, you might get the foul, but chances are you're just throwing up a brick and you're going to screw your last possession.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of like it wasn't a well enough thrown ball for that to work
No,
anyways. Like
it was so far behind.
he needed to have a chance to try and catch it for it to be
Yeah,
close enough.
yeah.
But I mean, part of me thinks I can see how potentially it could work, maybe, but at the same time you're probably saying to your defense before you go out there, please do not grab anybody or do anything, which obviously you're thinking about that every single play, but especially in like a basically a Hail Mary situation, you're going to probably load the box on AJ, and then like when Love came kind of across the field, the ball had to be thrown a lot better for it to have any chance for a
Mhm.
PI, I think, because he could just undercut it and there's nobody really
It
over
wasn't
it.
even close. Yeah. It was just, yeah, it was thrown too far behind for it to be a catchable ball. Maybe the ref would have thrown a flag if it had a little more juice on it. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly glad they didn't, because that would have been such a bad way to end that game, to get bailed out on DPI.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, a few of the other things I have, just like the rest of the secondary too. We had a lot of backups in, with Devin Witherspoon out and Tariq Woolen getting benched. Mike
That was so
Jackson,
weird.
he's still really good in coverage. He can't tackle.
That's
So he's Mike Jackson just Pete Carroll said Mike Jackson just outplayed him in practice and earned the starting spot. Um, and we've been active Mike Jackson haters on the show and off the show. But I mean, when he's come in, he's been good. Same with Artie Burns, um, the depth guys, because Trey Brown is out as well as Devin Witherspoon.
Yeah.
So we had a couple backup corners in there as well. And everyone played really well as far as I was concerned. Um, it was a really, I don't know what the word would be. Reassuring, maybe
Yeah.
inspiring, sure. Performance from the defense with all the backups in, uh, against an Eagles defense that, granted, hasn't been as good as they were last year, but still overall a lot of talent on that offense. Um, and I was really happy to see that, because Seattle's defense has kind of been getting picked apart the last few games. So I was happy with it. Um, and then one of the things you kind of mentioned when you were talking about that game-winning drive is James Bradbury just getting like hunted. I think
Yeah.
every catch to wide receiver, JSN and DK, were all on Bradbury. If you go back and watch the highlights, every single one of them, Bradbury was in coverage, which
Yeah.
is just nuts to me. Like, that Eagles secondary, man, and we talked about it the week before. Their secondary and their linebackers are huge issues for them, and couldn't have been showcased any better than Monday Night Football. Your number one corner getting beat 4 times just consistently to lose the game. Yeah, that Eagles secondary, man, I don't know. They need something there. And then the other problem with the Eagles is their rushing offense just isn't as good as it was last year. Um, Sanders was a big loss, as much as he hasn't really done anything since going to Carolina. And DeAndre Swift just hasn't been as productive as he was at the start of the year. Um, he's had 39 total touches between the last 3 games for, I can't remember how many yards it was. It was 150 something maybe. So he just isn't being efficient catching or running the ball. However, the Eagles need, a jolt off the bench. Maybe they have a certain former Seattle Seahawk on their roster still, who hasn't got a lot of love in Philly yet. Bring in Rashad Penny, man. Why not at this point? I mean, DeAndre Swift has just he's been terrible in the past few games in the last 3 losses here. So
They
why
have
not?
a lot more advanced game.
Yeah.
Also true. But really, nobody,
Defensive.
I was going to say, nobody in that running back room at the moment is moving me. Not Kenneth Gainwell, not Boston Scott. So Rashad Penny, why not? We've seen maybe they're saving him for the playoffs, and we'll see playoff Penny and he goes for 200 yards a game. I don't know, but they just need something to fix that rushing offense, because it's not nearly as efficient as it was last year.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably everything that I wanted to talk about.
It's everything
This,
that I want to mention. So
okay, perfect. Um,
How's you guys' fantasy teams doing?
Semifinals in my one league.
Semifinals.
I had a bye this week, which was great. I didn't have to look at
Oh,
the
sweet.
app, and then I was in the consolation for the other one, so I didn't look. I didn't even change my lineup, and I still won. So I'm in the playing for sixth or something in the other league. But
Mine are
My
non-existent. So
my other team that's not in the semifinals, our last week of our regular season was just this past weekend. And so I had CJ Stroud on my team. He was the quarterback of that team, and I needed to win to make the playoffs. And so since Stroud was out, I needed a quarterback, and I picked Zach Wilson because of the weekend he had before. He ended up fumbling the football, got hurt, put up negative 2.7 points, and I mean, I guess that's what you get for betting on Zach Wilson. So,
You know, I saw the repercussions of that too with Brees Hall.
oh,
I won my league, but 2.8 from Brees Hall is not going to cut it, buddy. So, talk to him in practice this week. Well, players only meeting. Just get the boys ready to go for round 2.
yeah.
while
Hopefully,
we're while we're talking about the Jets, have you guys been following the Aaron Rodgers stuff recently at all?
Very weird.
Dude,
he should not play. I
he's not going
really
to.
don't. Yeah, I really don't understand why they would even talk about him playing.
Especially, yeah,
with
I
their
think.
record.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was just saying with their record right now, it's not worth it.
They've been
They're
eliminated, haven't they?
Yeah,
If they were a bubble playoff team, maybe, but
I still don't know. You trade a lot for this guy. I just don't see why you would bring him
risk it.
back this late in the season when he's
Not
not
only,
fully healthy,
yeah,
against a full 100% offense and defense. That's just an injury waiting to happen.
Yeah.
and I think you just pack it in and wait for next season. You try and prepare for next
Yeah,
season with Rodgers. I think is what they should
100%.
do.
that's yeah. Because the latest news to come out is that he went on the Pat McAfee show after the Jets had lost their game last week and said that after previously saying that he was going to be reinstated onto the roster and maybe ready within the next few weeks, after they lost this game, he went on the Pat McAfee show and said, "Yeah, I'm not medically cleared. I won't be playing this season," which is just duh, come on.
Yeah,
No one thought that you were going to come back, man. And to kind of string the fan base along for the entire season with, oh, maybe, especially after how bad their quarterback play's been so far, it's I really don't understand it. And then the other thing is the Jets have brought him onto the 53-man roster and they cut, can't remember what his name is, but obviously some guy, some bubble player.
Yeah,
So they cut some dude on the roster so that Aaron Rodgers, who's not even going to play, can be on the roster come to the end of the year, which why? I don't really understand. You're just making some other dude lose a paycheck who is a fringe player anyways. So it just doesn't make sense to me. To me personally, we talked about this last year during the whole "where's Aaron Rodgers going to go" thing of Aaron Rodgers kind of being a bit of a diva and seeking attention with
I
the
was about to
whole.
say. I was going to
Yeah,
say
go
this
ahead.
is classic Rodgers.
Exactly. With the last year with the ayahuasca darkness retreat, and then this year tearing Achilles week 1 and immediately being like, I might come back this year, guys. Guys, I might come back. You don't know. I could be medically cleared. It could happen. And then as soon as they're eliminated, being like, actually, never mind, it wasn't going to happen. It just, I'm not a fan of it. And I'm sure Jets fans aren't either. I'd be pretty frustrated if Aaron Rodgers is my quarterback and that was the treatment we got this year. And then on top of everything else he's done, he has to be buddies with all of his former teammates and bring in a bunch of guys, which is why Tim Boyle's on the team to start with, because he's a former Aaron Rodgers teammate who was just god awful when he came in. Same with Dalvin Cook, although not a teammate.
Alan
But
Lazard struggled
Alan
too there.
Lazard, he's been terrible so far. So Rodgers playing buddy as GM and just bringing in all his friends hasn't paid off for him. And yeah, man, I feel bad for Jets fans. That's for sure.
I
I
saw a
will say
trade rumor
though,
though.
That guy that
Oh,
got
you go,
cut.
Taylor.
That guy that got cut. CFL Grey Cup MVP next year.
So there we go.
Might happen. That's
You
what.
never
That's
know.
what you can look forward to.
This is the redemption story for him. It starts right now.
Yeah.
Don't even know what his name is, but just wait.
I'm going to look it up.
Book it. I saw a trade rumor though the other day surrounding the Jets, and it was Alan Lazard first for Devontae Adams.
Ooh.
Why? Why would the Raiders do that? I mean, I guess they get a draft pick out of it.
Yeah, but
To be fair,
Um,
the Raiders did give up, I believe it was a second for Devontae Adams. So technically they're bringing in more
That's
value.
profit. That's
That's-
profit, baby.
yeah,
I guess that is more value than they gave up for him. So it's a net plus, I guess, in the end. But
The Raiders are playing the long game here. That's what we didn't consider.
yeah.
well, and you know Devontae's gonna go. Like Devontae's
Yeah.
gonna go. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, to go back with Aaron Rodgers? Yeah,
There's no
absolutely.
chance he would be like, I'm okay.
I'm sticking with Aiden O'Connell out here in Las Vegas. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
brutal, man. That's brutal.
By the way,
Interesting.
the guy the Jets cut, fullback Nick Bowden, who's now
There you go.
back on the practice squad, I believe.
He's gonna be converted converted running back for the next great CFL team.
Oh, dude, he's putting up 3,000 in the CFL next year.
It's gonna happen.
True.
Maybe he'll take Najee Harris's spot. We'll take it.
He's got the capabilities to do that.
He sure does. I think anybody does.
Sticking in the AFC East here, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills, man. They whooped the Cowboys. Like, that was brutal.
They're coming into form at the right time.
It's true. I
Yeah,
mean,
Somebody you
a lot
want to see
better.
in the first round.
I was gonna say if I'm a high seed, I'm not wanting to go against them as a wild card team. So
Hmm.
absolutely not. Out of everybody in
They
the
beat the
AFC,
Eagles too, didn't they?
the Bills,
Yeah,
I
did they beat the Eagles?
believe so. I think that's kind of where the Eagles streak started, or losing streak.
So it's like any of like the top.
No, they lost to the Eagles. Because that was
Okay.
that was the one where Jalen Hurts rushed it in overtime to win.
Right.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Even still, I think they give
Chiefs. Yeah.
anybody a tough go.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be playing the Bills come wild card time.
No.
Just, I feel like Josh Allen's kind of one of the guys where if he's on your team, you got a shot in the playoffs. He's just that good.
Unless you get to overtime.
And yeah, true. Well, if you get to overtime, you can throw for a one-play touchdown, but then it won't matter because the defense will give it up again immediately. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, James Cook, I know we talked about Josh Allen, but James Cook, he had 220 something rushing yards against the Cowboys. Like, Josh Allen barely did anything. James Cook was just out there, well, cooking the Cowboys, dare I say.
I think Allen's total was 93 passing yards because after the game he said it's like when you get an A on a group project when you do nothing.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's actually something I was thinking about. Since we're not doing this live, technically we can swear, can we not?
I was thinking the same thing. I have a couple of quotes for the NHL later
Okay, good. Because
Boys.
we can throw the explicit warning up on Spotify. Folks at home, if you're listening and you don't feel like hearing a curse word right now, you should plug your ears real quick. I believe the quote from Josh Allen after the game, there was a video of the locker room for the Bills where he said, "Run the damn ball." I mean, if you're running backs putting up 220 whatever yards, why not? Might as well.
That was the first word I was expecting to hear.
I was like, I might have actually said "damn" a couple times on this show. So.
Yeah, I think
Well,
so.
Listen, I just wanted to check in first before I said the
I feel like
a
I feel like
bad
damn's
word.
a very fringe curse word.
Yeah.
I
It
know,
is.
I know.
It's like you might
It's
not
like-
say it around your grandma, but if it slips, you're gonna be fine, right?
Damn.
Yeah.
True.
I
Damn.
let damn fly. I don't know. Maybe I'm just cool with my grandma. Yeah.
Depends on the grandma, I guess.
Yeah. That's
So
True,
when you're
very
with
true.
your grandma and you see a beaver, are you like, what do you call its house then?
Darn.
got you there.
Well,
That's-
I don't
this
know
is
if we
the-
can do 2 pun episodes in 2 weeks.
I
I
was
don't know if we can do
well,
this.
You're lucky I skipped one I had in the notes. I didn't touch one of them. I left it alone. Um, Spotify Q&A question this week. Do you say damn around your grandma? Yes or no? We have it locked in.
Yeah, I'm putting that
Yes, sir.
Do we want to talk about the
Beautiful.
flip side of that game now? Because the Dallas Cowboys, who it looked like might, with the run that the Eagles were on, might have ended up winning the NFC East, and they would have been in first place all alone had they won this game against the Bills. And oh boy, was that a bad game for Dallas.
Terrible. Yeah, I mean, they were just getting torched all game. Like, couldn't their defense was like a wet Kleenex out there. I mean, James Cook was just running right through him. It wasn't even close. Um, there really isn't that much to say about this game, I don't think, other than the fact that that Cowboys defense is just getting torched. And the offense wasn't much better. So
Yeah.
that kind of does lead into the next point that I have down here with the Cowboys' lackluster offensive performance is for me, MVP was kind of coming down to two players, and it's Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. And after this performance from Dak Prescott, I think Purdy might win it, man. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be up to like Lamar and maybe McCaffrey if he puts up some good numbers in the next little bit here. Um, I think Purdy's kind of got it locked up though. As
Yeah.
much of
So
a,
how big is this upcoming game towards the MVP race?
I think it's huge because I think Lamar is one of the guys that I would also have up there as a favorite for MVP. So going head to head against the Niners, it'll be huge. Now, granted, I think the Niners defense is better than Baltimore's, not by much. So I think it'll be a tougher task for Lamar maybe. But if Purdy puts up a stinker and Lamar kind of torches the Niners, that could do it, that head to head battle. But same side of the coin, if Purdy even plays okay and Lamar kind of has a bad day, then yeah, I think Purdy's kind of got it locked up.
The thing with the McCaffrey thing too is Purdy's his quarterback, so
Yeah,
it looks good for Purdy as well if McCaffrey does well.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's kind of
It's
like kind of tough.
it's at this point it's I don't think McCaffrey's going to get it. I think it will be Purdy, but
Yeah.
I think that the fact that McCaffrey's even in the discussion at all kind of shows that he is the most valuable player on that team, to be completely
Yeah.
honest, because running backs never get that recognition anymore.
Trent Williams was also on the MVP ladder at one point too.
I don't know if that was for everyone. I know who you're thinking of. I think Emmanuel Acho had his MVP ladder that had Trent Williams on it.
Yeah, I take
But
that back. Anything that he says
he's had some
should
questionable
not be
takes.
repeated.
But honestly, I mean, it's not that crazy to say that Trent Williams is like insanely valuable as an offensive
They
lineman.
lost 3 games without him. Like,
Him and Debo, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think it does come down to Purdy at this point. I think he probably will end up winning it. I just don't see what are the Niners' last few games? We got the Ravens, we got Commanders, Rams. I mean, the Rams defense
Chance it
going to
could go
stop
3
the
for 3.
Niners.
Chance it could
He
go 3
he that's yeah, like that schedule's not crazy, especially with how good the Niners are.
I don't
Um,
know. Baltimore kind of makes me nervous for some reason.
Baltimore, yeah,
But
no. They out of all the teams there, yeah, they definitely have a shot at it. I think it's if there's any team that can beat the Niners, it is probably the Ravens at this point.
the thing
Um,
that's also like when you said Lamar for potential MVP, I've had him on my fantasy this year, so I've noticed he sits a lot when their team is up, which doesn't help him either.
mhm. Yeah, he
Like,
never really puts up crazy numbers or anything.
well, it's
Yeah.
just because like some of the games they get up by so much, and a lot of the time like there was a couple games this year where it was their defense that scored like 2 touchdowns, and then they're
Mhm.
up by like 30, and then
Mhm.
they just put Huntley in, and it's like
Mhm.
that it kind of screws Lamar out of a chance because he doesn't have as many snaps played and stuff like that. Whereas
Yeah,
Purdy in Blau still plays, so
he's up there. Yeah, pretty much every
that
game.
might be another reason why he might not have a chance, and Purdy will potentially be a lock for it. It's just
Yeah,
purely just playtime, but
I mean,
I was I was gonna ask you guys. So I seen. Did you guys see the thing that Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, they were up at the podium together, and they refer to themselves as Robin Big from MTV Fantasy Factory.
that's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that show, but
I I know.
That's an all-time show right there.
Yeah. Rob Dyrdek's other show, Ridiculousness, is one of my favorite TV shows. So I like the reference.
Classic.
Respect that. Um, Next one we have here, yeah, the Jaguars. Speaking of the Ravens, ugh, they were not looking good out there. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is off however many painkillers, running out there on a high ankle sprain.
Uh-huh.
Their offense doesn't look good. Their defense doesn't look any better. So,
Man, I think that the Jags are going to regret not sitting Trevor Lawrence in the long run. I really think they are.
yeah,
They're now tied with the Colts and Texans for first in the AFC South, and it looked like the Jags were running away with it. Now, credit to both the Texans and the Colts for staying in that fight. Two teams that we didn't expect to have their names in the conversation this late in the season.
nope.
But man, it was the Jags division to lose, and it's looking like they might lose it.
Right on
I think
pace.
this season was supposed to be one where the Jags were supposed to, I think, take that next step into the next tier of teams, become a contender. And really, all they've been this year has been a pretender. When you think about it, I think this year is a failure if they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've just I was super high on them coming into this season, and I thought that maybe they'd be one of the top teams in the AFC. But they've just been so disappointing, like across the board. Um, Trevor Lawrence hasn't taken that next step like I thought he maybe could.
Yeah,
But also the situation around him isn't great. Their rushing offense sucks. Their offensive line is terrible. So as much as it is maybe partially on him, just because he hasn't been as good as everyone expected him to be, I think that's the biggest thing is that their offensive line is just it's bad. And
yeah,
when you're a quarterback, it's hard to come back from stuff like that. And then when you can't run the ball, same thing. We saw it with the Chargers. We've seen it over the past few seasons with them where they can't run the ball to finish out games, and it ends up coming back to bite them. And that's what the Jags are kind of going through right now, with just a lack of rushing offense.
yeah.
did you guys see that there were 6 backup quarterbacks that won this week?
I
I think it
didn't,
was something like
but that doesn't surprise me.
I think it
Jake
was something like
Browning,
most in NFL
Mullins,
history in a week.
Lock.
McConnell,
O'Connell.
Oh, true.
Would O'Connell
Okay.
be the starter though? Because they've benched Jimmy G, haven't they?
What does it count as?
I think it's just not the starting quarterback from the start
From
of
the
the
start of
year.
the season? Okay, yeah.
I believe so.
Did I say Mullins?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
There were
Maybe
6.
Oh
I
no,
can't remember who they
Mullins
all
is on the
were.
Vikings, is he not?
Yeah.
And they lost to Cincy.
It
Jake
wasn't
Browning.
Mullins.
Oh, that's right.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum,
True. Case
Texans, yeah.
Keenum beat Tennessee. That's true. But I mean,
Anyways, that's kind of crazy to think about.
it is. It is. I can't remember what exactly the number is, but I think it's like 60 some odd starting different quarterbacks so far this year with
Crazy.
32 total teams. So
Yeah.
it's been the year of the backup.
Um, Speaking of backups, do you guys think that Jake Browning will have a full-time job somewhere next year? Like starting
Yeah, I
job?
have a full-time job probably on the bench somewhere. I don't
I
think
wouldn't say
to be a
he's going to be
starter?
a starter for anywhere, but I think
It's
he'll get paid to be a
maybe if
backup.
he's on like he gets signed to a kind of a smaller deal to some team that really wants a quarterback like desperately.
I think
But
it.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, Terrell, go ahead. You need to finish your
I
point.
really didn't. I know I didn't really have that much else to say. So
It was just I don't know if he's ready yet either, but he's been playing really well when he's been in. So I was just wondering if you guys thought that maybe there'd be somebody that
I think
that would desperately take him. But
I was gonna say it depends on how he finishes out the season too. Like if within these next 3 games, if he doesn't play well, probably gonna end up on the bench, as Terrill said. But if he continues on this role that he's on, I think someone's gonna take a chance on him as a starter that doesn't have a quarterback.
but
I'm a fan of a team without a quarterback, so I
you
would
can
take
have
him.
You can have Drew Lock for Joey Porter Jr. in a first, buddy.
You can take
You
Kazee
can
if
like
you
it.
want, because he's not playing for the rest of the year anyways. But
Can we
True.
talk about
Forgot
that
about that.
hit?
we
That
didn't.
was. There's been a lot
Was
of
that
discourse.
worth the suspension?
Yes.
I think that was a horrible hit.
It was.
Honestly, as I was watching that, I really didn't think Pittman was going to get up from that.
No, me neither.
Picture the ambulance pulling onto the field and him getting.
Yeah, it was.
It was okay.
Watching it, you could just tell that the whole defense was frustrated, and I think it was just a frustration hit. It was just an anger hit.
Mhm.
It was just trying to shake something up. It kind of felt like the same vibe as like a hockey fight where you're trying to get your
Okay.
team back in it, but it ended up just being a stupid play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of started a big discourse in the NFL. Like Tom Brady commented on it, talking about throwing hospital balls, and a bunch of other quarterbacks have as well. And I understand that sentiment where offenses shouldn't be rewarded for throwing hospital balls, but at the same time, like Pittman's out for the game, so they aren't rewarded for it.
He came
And I
back.
mean, did he come back in the game?
Yeah, I think he played. He went to concussion protocol, and I thought he was fine. I'm pretty sure.
No,
Was it
he was
not?
out.
I thought he was out. Yeah.
Was he out?
He's
Yeah.
still going through the concussion protocol.
Oh, okay. I thought he came
Sweet.
back in the game. Maybe I was wrong, but
He's on my
I think-
fantasy team. I was all over that shit, bro.
Okay.
I need him back. I need him back.
yeah. I don't know. I was kind of a fraudulent fan. I was kind of like half watching.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah, he got 30 put up on you by the Colts. I don't blame you for that one, honestly.
We're getting 30 put up on us by anybody right now, so it's just
That's also fair.
sad, but-
But yeah, I mean, that was I can understand where people like Brady come from, obviously, where you shouldn't be throwing balls like that because you're putting your receivers in harm's way. But at the same time, as a DB, you got to understand that all you're doing there is you're getting your team put in a bad position because either you're getting ejected or you're getting a penalty or both. And I mean, I guess you just gotta know better. Like, I don't know. That seems like something you just shouldn't do.
like I said, I think it was just straight frustration. There was no thought put into it. He was
Yeah.
trying to hit him hard. I don't know if it was because he was trying to, pop the ball loose or just hit him hard and hurt
Yeah.
him, but
Trying to make a
it
play,
didn't
but
seem like very much to basically no thought process. So
yeah,
I feel like a lot of those hits, that's usually what happens. It's either there's an underlying I want to hurt this guy, or it's just not thinking. But
just a frustration. Yeah. Yeah.
I think just that
I mean-
whole organization right now is just kind of built on frustration. But yeah,
That's fair. But I mean,
it is.
yeah, it's the NFL's put a big emphasis on, player safety and lack of, shots to the head, and that was a shot to the head, so it makes sense that he got ejected and suspended and is out for the season.
We've seen a lot of suspensions this year. So
I mean, yeah, Kareem Jackson's been racking them up like nobody's business. So
he's putting Draymond on watch for suspensions here. But yeah,
we can. I kind of want to talk about that Bears and Browns game because I don't know if you guys saw. Well, first the Hail Mary to Mooney, which was like very, very nearly completed.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
That was crazy.
It was
I wouldn't
so
even call
close.
that nearly completed. That's like,
that was it. Yeah.
like how do you drop that? It was in your heads. That's crazy.
That was a brutal one, but the play that really I think was even worse was the drop by Robert Tonyan. Did you guys see that one?
No, I
No?
don't watch the game. They saw that I picked them as the upset, and they're like, he's gonna not catch the ball this time.
It's if you want to be really sad that Justin Fields made a good play and was sold by a receiver, just look at Robert Tonyan drop because it was a fantastic play from Fields, and it hit Tonyan square in the hands, and he just bobbled it and dropped it, which is kind of a encapsulation of Justin Fields' career so far to this point, where you see the talent, you see it in flashes, and then the rest of the team just kind of fails them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. That was just a disappointing game.
The first year,
See that.
since we've been talking a lot about fantasy football on this show, the first year that I played fantasy football, I picked up Robert Tonyan as my tight end, he did nothing.
We
He
should have
wasn't
known.
bad last year for the Packers, was he?
I don't
Yeah,
think so.
I had
Last
him
year,
in
I thought he was pretty good.
I had him the year before, and he didn't do
Okay.
much
I'm
for
pretty
me at
sure
all.
last year he was okay because I had him too at the end of the year, and he had a couple really good games.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That was still Rodgers, so maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really disappointing play. Last thing, I think, and then we can move on to NHL or NBA, whatever you want to talk about next. T. Higgins. We
That
had
was
two
in
game-winning catches,
Crazy.
and I want to say that JSN's was a better game winner, but dude, that T. Higgins catch was, I think
crazy.
T. Higgins, that might have been
So
that might be
nice.
catch of the year.
Just like
I
the
mean,
read back was just so crazy.
I was gonna say
It
the
seems
catch
so
itself.
simple what he did. It was just like nuts to see. Like I've never seen.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was the Moss, and then that second effort, and it was
I
just.
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
I was just gonna say the Vikings had two DBs, the guy that got dunked on by Higgins, and then there's a dude kind of standing off to the side, like just watching T. Higgins stretch his arm out to get the touchdown. It just looked really funny to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an insane catch.
I just kept seeing the meme of like Space Jam when he's going for the dunk and his arm stretches all the way out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's what I kept seeing, and I was like, that's actually perfect because it like I'm surprised his arm didn't just like pop out of its socket. Like he was like fully reached.
it was crazy.
And at first glance, I was like, okay, he just like reached his arm out, but it's down at like the 2. Like it didn't look
Yeah.
like he even got it close
it
to waving
over.
it over the pylon. But I looked at it again, I was like, oh my God, he actually used his 7'8" wingspan to get it over there. But
It was crazy play.
yeah.
it's nuts.
Do you guys have anything else for the NFL?
No. Go
Yeah.
Hawks.
There we go. Okay. Do you want to go NHL then?
Yeah, I'll do NHL. Winners and losers here. Gonna start off first winner, Washington Capitals. Won 3 in a row. They're gonna be in that giant mix of teams in the East, trying to get into the last wildcard spot at the end of the season. So I think little runs like this are definitely going to be helpful for them by the time you get into April, and you need to win every game you can. You need every point to get in. And Alexander Ovechkin, he scored the overtime winner tonight, and it was his first goal in he had a 14-game goalless drought, so I think it'd be the official stat would be first goal in 15 games then. But and I'm hoping Ovi scores a bit more because that's only his 6th goal of the season, and he's of course trying to catch Wayne Gretzky for the all-time goals record. He's going to need to finish out the season strong. I think if he wants to give himself a chance here, he'll need at least 25, I think, this season to stay on track. Next winner here, Nathan MacKinnon. He's on a 16-game point streak, which is currently the most in the NHL. This guy right here has the second most with 12. Of course, I'm pointing to my Jack Eichel signed jersey there.
Pointing to Terril.
Oh, I guess for your screen. That is
I
funny.
saw it. I saw it. It made sense.
Well, Terril, I guess, yeah, he's ahead of Terril then by about 4 games. But no, Nathan MacKinnon, in all seriousness, he's on an amazing streak. 16 games, 28 points over that streak, and he's now second in the NHL for 48 points, which is 9 behind Nikita Kucherov for the league lead. And I don't think McKinnon's really ever won any major awards. I know he won the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year in his rookie year, but I don't think he's won any major awards since then. He might have. He wouldn't have won the Lady Byng. He plays way too physically to win that award. So I think for Nathan MacKinnon, he's going to want... I think he's a guy that's going to, by the end of his career, he's going to be in Hall of Fame talks. And I think that he's hungry for an individual award. He's had the Stanley Cup, had a lot of team success in the past, but I think he wants some kind of individual award to round out his resume as a Hall of Famer. Big time winner here. The Winnipeg Jets. Currently in first place in the Central Division. And I thought they'd be a bubble team at the end of the season. They've won 7 of their last 9 games, which includes 2 wins over the Avalanche. And I was watching the game on Saturday, which I thought would be a close game. I thought 2 top 3 teams in the Central. And the Jets rolled over them in that game, won the game 6-2. And Mark Scheifele has played amazing this season, 34 points in 31 games. Kyle Connor has 28 and 26. And Connor Hellebuck, the ever-reliable goaltender for the Jets, has a .916 save percentage and 10.8 goals saved above expected. And that's why at the start of the year, when people questioned the extension for Hellebuck, I kind of didn't agree with it, because he's one of the few goalies in the NHL that I think you can put your trust in to be elite now, where there's not too many goalies that are that way. The top goalies in the NHL seem to bounce from season to season. One guy who's a Vezina candidate one season is getting sent to the AHL the next. Jack Campbell. Gonna go on to the losers here. We do have an ultimate loser this week. First loser here, Jonathan Huberdeau. 0 points in his last 9 games. And I mentioned the NFL segment. I was at the Flames game on Monday against Florida. And though Huberdeau did get the win against his former team, I hardly noticed him out on the ice. Unlike Matthew Tkachuk, who I think he had a decent game. It wasn't an elite Matthew Tkachuk game, but certainly looked effective out there on the ice. He was very effective on that first goal. Had a tip shot on Markstrom, which Markstrom saved. Reinhart put in the rebound that Markstrom couldn't corral. And I think at this point, Calgary needs to, I think they need to sooner rather than later trade Jonathan Huberdeau. Now, you're not going to get much in return for him, but I think what you need to do is maybe a Lucic for James Neal kind of trade that the Flames did a couple years ago, where it was the Flames traded James Neal, who was a much less expensive Huberdeau, for Milan Lucic, who obviously was doing horribly for the Oilers. Both guys had bad contracts. But I think the Flames ultimately in the end won that trade, because they got a guy that, while he wasn't scoring, he provided physicality, he provided something to the team. He was effective in some regard. And I think that's almost what Calgary should do. And I was listening to NHL Network Radio yesterday, and someone called in, and it was a Habs fan, Taylor. And they said, because the question was on under review yesterday, it was, what does your NHL team need for Christmas? And there was I will say, shout out to this one guy who said, he's an Oilers fan, he said, we need to, Santa should bring us Victor Hedman in a trade for Darnell Nurse. And the host of the show got very mad. He's like, why would Tampa ever do that trade? And he's like, well, it's supposed to be a present for us. And so,
come on, we're bringing Santa into the equation here. Gotta be a little inventive.
But one Habs fan suggested this was a much more realistic thing. They wanted Jonathan Huberdeau in a trade, Taylor. And what they wanted was, they wanted to give up Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson for Jonathan Huberdeau, which I think salary-wise in the end kind of evens out. But it's because Gallagher and Anderson haven't provided much to the Canadians. And I think if you're the Flames, you got to trade Huberdeau while teams still have a little bit of hope that they can turn him around. Because if in 3 seasons here, he's still doing this, there isn't going to be much hope that a new team will change the course for Jonathan Huberdeau. So, and I think that a trade like that, like, you're not bringing in scoring if you're the Flames, but Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson can contribute something physically. Gallagher's a heart and soul player, even when he's not scoring, you know what I mean?
Definitely. I think, like, I don't know. For someone that's struggled so bad in the last 9 games, and since he's been in Calgary, it scares me a little bit to do that.
Yeah.
As much as, you're kind of right. Gallagher and Anderson don't do a lot, so maybe you could get away with it. It doesn't, like, scream opportunity to me, really. Like, it's not like a super, like, oh my God, we're going to get Huberdeau and maybe he'll be better. I don't know. From what I've seen since he's been traded, he seems to have lost a lot of passion, which, I mean, he is from Quebec, so maybe that could play a part in, kind of getting back into it. But, I mean, I wouldn't be mad because we're not losing a lot, but Anderson's starting to play better recently. And I feel like there's other players that I would get rid of instead of Anderson in that deal, maybe. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that if I was the GM of the Canadians. But yeah.
Yeah, I understand that as well. Next loser here, Golden
Sorry, let me
Knights.
just finish quickly though. If he did go back, if he did go to the Canadians and did have an 80-point season or a 90-point season, though, I'd be fantastic, super happy. But I don't know. I think the Canadians need a goal scorer, not as much a playmaker.
Yeah,
We've talked about it before. I think Clayton that the Canes are the team that has not had a 40-goal scorer in the longest period of time in the NHL. I think it was the Cup season that the last time they had a 40-goal scorer, which is kind of embarrassing because that was like 30 years ago.
yeah,
So I think if there's a splash trade to make, although Huberdeau in the last 2 years would not be a splash anymore, I think the priority for the Canes is someone that can score regularly, or a couple of
yeah,
guys that can score regularly. So I don't know if Huberdeau would be on the first on the radar, and he'd probably end up just playing with Monahan, and yeah, he'd probably play on the Monahan line. So I don't know if it would really benefit him any more than where he is right now.
yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. But
No, it's good, some good points there. I agree. I will say though, I think Cole Caulfield's going to be your first 40-goal scorer. I'm a big Caulfield guy, so I think he's going to do it.
I really like him too, but I also find that he has his moments where he's very uh, inconsistent.
Yeah,
He goes through games where he goes on a 14 game point streak, and then he goes like the next 9 with no points.
yeah,
So, and he doesn't show up as well against good teams. So it's tough to get to 40 when you're not scoring every night or every couple nights, and no multiple goal games really. So, as much as I like him too, I don't think he should be the number one guy for goals. But if he could score 40 as a supporting cast, then that would be fantastic. But it's not. I don't know. For some reason, I just don't see it. Maybe in a couple years when he hits his prime, but
yeah.
I'm not really sure.
I guess we'll have to see on that one. Time will tell. Uh, I kind of dropped the next bombshell here. Golden Knights as a loser, and it's not as much team performance, but it's more so I talked to you guys before we recorded the show. I watched the game earlier today, and Aiden Hill's hurt, which does a bit of damage
No.
to my Vesna agenda. Hopefully he's not out too long. He did get placed on IR, but hopefully he's not out too long so that he can maybe come back and continue that, because whether you like my Vesna agenda, whether you're annoyed by it or not, you have to admit he was playing great to start the season. Um, and Logan Thompson, he was playing all right, but I will say, and Thompson's now hurt too, which factors into this because now the Golden Knights have lost their top 2 goalies. And Thompson was playing well overall in the season, but you could tell from when Hill was hurt that Thompson shouldn't be starting 80% of the games, which he needed to do when Patera's the backup. He can't start 80%. He works better in a 1A, 1B system right now that he's in with Aiden Hill and plays better that way. He can't be overplayed. So I think that Hill being hurt, if he's out long term, it also affects Logan Thompson and his performance as well. With that being said now, the top 2 goalies for the Golden Knights are Yuri Patera and Isaiah Seville. And if you don't know those names, I don't blame you, because I think Patera was goalie of the year a few years ago with the Brandon Wheat Kings, but I mean he's been all right in the AHL, but hasn't been like, oh my God, we need to call this guy up. He started a few games last year when we had goalies hurt, but I think tonight they said on the Tampa broadcast was his 4th start of his career, and he had won every other start previously since before that, but the other start that he won, the only other start they made this season, the Golden Knights I think won. It was like 5-4 or 6-5. It was 5-4 against the Sharks, and Patera was not good in that game. And I think that over this next stretch of games, Golden Knights are going to need their offense to step up, And listen, they can certainly do it. I referenced the 12-game point streak Jack Eichel's on. It's currently second best in the NHL. He added another couple points tonight. But you lose 5-4 to the Lightning. Those are the kind of games that you're going to be playing in with those two guys as your goalies for. So hopefully Hill and Thompson can come back soon. And on Isaiah Seville, he has yet to start a game in the NHL. He's pretty young. I think he was drafted, I want to say 2019, but he's not been overly good to where it's like, oh my God, get this kid in the NHL. Same with Patera. He's, I guess, succeeded at every stage he's been in. Had a 920 in the East Coast League last year, but that's like the equivalent to AA in baseball. There's a whole nother step of progression before that, before you get to the NHL. And he had a 902 in the NHL in 10 games last season. Has a 950 this season through 3 games, which is amazing, but small sample size. So I kind of do want to see him get into a game just to kind of see what he has. Maybe proves that he's better than Patera when it comes to the NHL. But Golden Knights, they need Yuri Patera to play like a cowboy from hell over this next stretch of games. And if you got that reference, you're awesome. If you didn't get that reference, you need better music taste. It's I'll explain it. Patera sounds like Pantera, which is a band, and Pantera, heavy metal band. They're one of their famous songs was "Cowboys from Hell." So,
I'm sorry.
Right over my head. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Clayton.
I believe you.
yeah. Isn't that what all the cool kids are listening to these days? Is Pantera?
Absolutely.
Probably.
So,
That might be Pantera might have fit my year one radio show. I can't lie. I think I might have played a couple of Pantera songs.
Okay.
Ooh.
I like Pantera, so I like that. Finally here, the ultimate losers, Detroit Red Wings. That's a bit of a weaker ultimate loser. I guess I could have just made him a loser, but I decided to make him ultimate loser because I do think it is a bit significant here. They've lost 4 in a row, 6 of their last 7 games. They're still treading water in the East. They're still in that wild card mix, but they have fallen out of an official spot. Once again, like I said with Washington, you need every point you can get in the East right now because, man, come the end of the season, it's gonna get pretty tight there in the East. And they're now, as I mentioned, now on the outside looking in. Dylan Larkin's back though now. He's played the last 2 games, so hopefully, if you're the Red Wings, you can get back into it. In his game, I think it's had a bit of a positive impact on Patrick Kane as well because Kane's now up to 6 points in 8 games, has 4 points over his last 2 games when Larkin's been in the lineup, which is, if he continues that pace, kind of what we expected from Patrick Kane when he signed with Detroit, and could provide some great value to that team come playoff time if they do make it there. That concludes it for the winners and losers. Now to the news in the NHL. World Juniors start next week, and I'm not sure what to expect, as in I don't know who's going to win the tournament. I don't know really who the favorite is. I've looked at the Canada roster, and there's a few names on forward that jump out to me. Connor Geekie went 11th overall in the 2022 draft to the Arizona Coyotes. He's a big kid too, so maybe it's going to be a bit physical. Matt Savoy, who plays with Geekie with the Wenatchee Wild, which if you don't know who they are, the Winnipeg Ice relocated this season. They're the Wenatchee Wild.
Yeah,
Quite the
fun
name.
Fact, they used to be an arch rival, the Vernon Vipers. So,
Oh, really?
seen a couple Wenatchee Wild games in my time. Yeah, but move on. I just had to say that
Fun fact.
Yeah. All right. Hey, good to know.
because they
Maybe.
used to be in the PCHL and now they're higher up.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
So, and then the other 2 names, Matt Portress, who plays for Boston Bruins. He's played this season. The Bruins are loaning him to Team Canada for the World Juniors. Thank you, Boston. The Buffalo Sabres should have done the same thing with Zach Benson, but they're not either. Macklin Celebrini, who's supposed to go first overall in the draft, he's playing in this tournament, and I think his stock is only going to rise from this because by the sounds of it, Cole Iserman, who's supposed to go number 2 from the United States, it doesn't sound like he's playing in this tournament. So I think from that, it only means that Celebrini's stock can only go up from here. I will say, though, and I'm not going to get into the reasons why they're not in the tournament, But if Russia was in this tournament, I'm convinced they'd win. They'd have Matvey Mishkov, Silyev, that kid who I talked about a couple weeks on the TikTok, which I'll run through the gauntlet here after the NHL segment. Dmitry Simashev, who went 6th overall last year to the Coyotes. They'd have a pretty good team, but not going to get into the reasons why. That has nothing to do with sports, and I refuse to talk politics. So,
this isn't a political show.
No, it's not.
Sports political, maybe, but real politics.
Strictly
this is,
times.
But even then, though, this is more connected to real politics because the reasons why Russia isn't in the tournament isn't really a sports political reason.
Some conflicts going on that they're involved in that other people have frowned upon.
Yeah. Moving on to the next one. It's a bit of a weird news this week, and it kind of made me sad at first, and then all of a sudden it turns out it's not real. So it come out earlier this week that Nolan Patrick, who is currently on LTIR for the Golden Knights, that he was retiring due to injury. And it turns out this is misinformation. So Nolan Patrick hasn't played. He didn't play at all last season. Hasn't played at all this season due to concussion injuries. He's really struggled throughout his career. He's a former 2nd overall pick by the Flyers. And when he was on the Flyers, he struggled with injuries. And there was stretches of play for Nolan Patrick where he'd look like the 2nd overall pick that everyone expected him to be, and then he would just be derailed due to injuries. And you hate to see something like that happen. And the kid's still only 25 years old. If he does end up coming back to hockey, which I hope we do see him back in the game sometime, I hope that he gets back up to speed, whether that's with the Golden Knights or with another team. I hope that he gets his career back on track. But it had come out that he had retired. He did not. So some misinformation in the hockey world. Sports reporting in Canada has just been great these last couple weeks, hasn't it, Terril?
Wonderful. I love it.
Moving on to the next one here. What's going on with the Colorado Avalanche? It's a bit weird. So this will be some swearing, so if you don't want to hear it, 3, 2, 1, there, you better have skipped on to moving on. You better have skipped ahead in the podcast by now if you don't want to hear swearing. Devon Toews took a shot at his teammates after they lost to Chicago earlier this week on Tuesday, and this was the exact quote from Devon Toews. I think we got some guys who think they're playing well, and I think they're kidding themselves at this point. It's frustrating to play out there when you got guys who think they're playing well. Actually, that wasn't the swear. The swear is in the next quote from Mikko Rantanen.
No, just missed that quote. No. All of our loyal listeners.
But here's the thing with the Avalanche. They're still a top 3 team right now in the Central Division. They've had a lot of success as a group. They won a Stanley Cup here now, not even 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And it's weird to see a team like that having fractures in the locker room. And it's weird in the NHL too. Like I know, like anytime it happens in the NHL, people raise their eyebrows because that's not the hockey way. You're not supposed to criticize teammates in the media. You're supposed to give cliche answers. So it's ultimately pretty interesting when you see something like that happen. Speaking of not giving cliche answers, here's what also makes me wonder about the Avalanche locker room. Less than 2 weeks ago, Mikko Rantanen had some words for Artturi Lehkonen's dad, who's a broadcaster in Finland, and had criticized Rantanen's training over the summer. And so Mikko Rantanen had scored against Calgary, put up 2 assists in that game, and the Avalanche had won. And Rantanen says in the post-game interview, I got a lot of extra energy. One of our Finnish NHL players' dads was talking shit about me in the media that I didn't train last summer like I used to do. And he was just making things up. So I think that was for him, you know. If you talk shit, it's going to come back at you.
The first 2 swears in Armchair Athletes history.
I'm just.
Well, no, we have sworn before.
Oh, it's
Two,
true, but
like-
that
off
one
the
goes.
books. That's off the books.
2 like for sure
books.
like endorsed swears that we did on purpose. I just think it's funny that you went. If you're listening at home, folks, skip this part if you don't want to hear a swear, and then whoever skipped ahead would have got to the next part where there is actually a swear.
Yeah, hopefully they'd skip only like 2 minutes. Hopefully they skipped like 5. But yeah, no. So for that, it's. I think that quote would even be interesting in another league where there's typically, like, I know I don't want to pick on the NBA here, but you look at like you see quotes that happen quite a bit, like where it's James Harden saying "I am the system" or something like that. I think even a quote like that would raise eyebrows in the NBA because you're getting mad at another player's dad, and even though he didn't mention Lekanen by name, it's pretty obvious who he was mentioning.
Finnish player's dad. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and it's not like he just said like some broadcaster in Finland either. He makes mention of one of
Yeah.
our teammates' dads, meaning like he's mad at the player too as a result. So, and I think it's interesting for a group like the Avalanche, like I said, who had a lot of success as a group, and might be interesting here in the future. Maybe it plays out with trades, maybe it plays out with free agency, maybe we're just overreacting to this. Who knows? Time will tell. Last point here. The Sabres Sabres earlier this week had 9 scored on them by Columbus, and tonight scored 9 against the Leafs, which is just hilarious. Who cares about consistency? Does it even exist? Like,
that is consistent. Putting up, it doesn't matter what side the goals are on. You just got to get 9.
Yeah. That's all I have for NHL this week. If you guys wanna talk, I was gonna run the gauntlet here.
Okay.
TikTok at Armchair Athletes, Instagram at the Armchair Athletes, Twitter at Chair Athletes, YouTube at the Armchair Athletes 196. 96 is Mikko Rantanen's number. Add that with the 100 swears in this episode.
I was gonna say that maybe should be something we start doing at the very beginning of shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably right, but
as well, just want to bring up, I did do release the first 2 parts of my jersey ranking on the TikTok, and I've already had a couple people comment criticizing it. Let me just say, hey, controversy creates cash. And I do truly believe in the rankings though too. I'm not just doing it for controversy, but I know that it is controversial. So, hey, we appreciate the engagement on any social media platform.
I was gonna say, as long as you stand by what you say, it doesn't matter if it's controversial. You could, if your ranking's a little different than everyone else's, that's good. You know.
Yeah, it is my opinion. So.
There you go. I think basketball next. Maybe I kind of want to finish off with the MLB.
Yep, we had big news there.
We do. Will, if you want to baller of the week, take it away.
Yeah, sure. Baller of the week this week. If you watch the show, you know that we're not the biggest Joel Embiid supporters, but boy, is it hard to not support this guy. Like, just on a tear. Over his last 4 games, 42, 13, 3 points, rebounds, assists on 60, 36, 94% shooting splits. Like, that's crazy. He was the MVP last year, and he's playing even better this year.
Yeah. I think it's honestly kind of unfortunate that he won that first MVP, because if there's any season where he really truly deserved to win it, it's probably this one. Yeah. And I think that first MVP is going to kind of taint it a little bit, because I still think everyone thought that Jokic deserved it more than him. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's been out of his mind these past few weeks. Granted, the games we're talking about here: Detroit, Charlotte, Chicago, and then Minnesota, which is a very good team with 2 bigs. But he's kind of had a bit of a soft schedule, but you know, he's putting up the numbers, and he did it in 33 minutes a night. So he's been lighting it up. One thing I will say though, like you said, we're not big Joel Embiid fans here. I do not like watching him play. I can't stand it. Some of the fouls he draws, granted, I do think that, you know, foul baiting is kind of a skill in and of itself. But just watching him, you know, chuck up a brick like you were talking about earlier in the football segment, trying to draw a foul, and he gets it every time, whether there's contact or not. It's frustrating to watch.
Man, you're too big to fall like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, you're 7'2", to what, nearly 280. Like, how are you falling this easily? You're the most fragile man out there. It just pisses me off watching him. It truly does. But
It's
boy, can he shoots free throws better than anybody in the league.
Like,
I
it's
mean,
ridiculous. The free
he's
free throw shooting is the one that blows my mind the most. Because like, if you think of any unreal Hall of Fame center, none of them were near, and if they were near, it would be crazy. Like, I would have loved to know how much better Shaq would have been if he could shoot that.
Oh, Shaq,
yeah.
40 a game easy.
He probably would be the best player of all. He could possibly be the best player of all time. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, Hacky Shaq would have never been a thing, but because he shoots so well from the free throw line. But yeah, it's crazy how like all those centers back in the day, if they practiced that more, it would have been kind of insane to see how much different it would have been. But I guess we're also in the era of them shooting threes too, which is kind of crazy. So
Yeah. I mean, I think, kind of, tying everything together, the amount of fouls he gets a game is crazy, but him shooting 94% with the amount of free throw attempts he has is also crazy. He's just so efficient when he goes up to the line. Like, I'm just looking at his stat sheet right now. Against the Pistons, he had 16, hit 15 of them. Charlotte had 6, hit all 6. Chicago had 9, hit 8. And then Minnesota had 18 and he hit 17. So he's just so efficient when he goes up to the line that you don't want to foul him, but like, he's just really good at drawing fouls, as frustrating as it is to watch. You have to admit that he is good at it. Whether or not you consider that like a skill, he does it and he does it well, and other players do it and don't do it as well. So yeah, I mean, watching him, like, the play that I thought of when you're talking about he shouldn't fall over like that is he just had one against Chicago Bulls where I just went up to take a shot and just like dove to the free throw line like 15 feet, and it's like, come on, man, you don't have to do all that.
Yeah, it's like it's one thing if you're like Isaiah Thomas, like
yeah,
5 foot whatever, trying to get to the free throw line because you're shorter and smaller than the guy on the court. But like, yeah, Joel Embiid, if you really like, oh, I don't know what to say. Like, guys so big, go down low and you'll get fouled. You don't have to do all this
No.
extra shit. Now that we
Yeah.
switched the show, holy, like,
There we go.
speaking of shit, how
Oh,
bad do you think the Raptors have been this year? I think they've been so bad.
I wouldn't go that far, but
they aren't good.
man,
Mid?
man.
I think they've been below mid. I don't. That's true. They have not been the S word. They've just been like so mid. Like, they can't string anything together. That's their
It's the
problem.
same team, man. They're the same team.
Like, they just don't make any changes. It's yeah. I don't like their coach either. Although it's probably not the coach's fault. Not a huge Darko fan, but
I mean, you can only do so much with this roster.
no, that's true.
Right?
But I just feel like yeah, Nurse last year wasn't great, but most of the time that Nurse was there, if they were going a little skid, he'd usually figure a way to change it. And it seems like right now it's kind of just rolling a dice, and sometimes they play good and they win, and the other times they just get blown out or just shown up by some teams that aren't great either.
I honestly feel like maybe they're not changing anything because the changes aren't going to come on the court. It's going to come from the front office, and they're going to change this roster and then start to build chemistry and a game plan around this new roster.
They got to do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to win a championship or you got to lose and try and get a good pick. You don't want to sit in purgatory in the middle like so many teams do because they're scared of tanking.
It's just like they're trying to be a play-in team, and it doesn't work.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I understand the rationale of like, anything can happen. Football any given Sunday, but this Raptors team, even if they do make as a play-in team, they're not going deep on a deep playoff run. Yeah, they've just been disappointing.
Yeah. I think
Um,
shooting has been one of our worst things. We
mhm.
just don't shoot the ball consistently enough with the other teams and Eastern Conference or just in the NBA in general. We don't really have that guy for shooting the ball, so it makes it harder to run an offense with no
Mhm.
real spacing. So that's the thing I find the most frustrating watching them.
It's
Yeah.
just it's just mid, man. It's just mid.
Mhm.
Mm.
I'm just like hoping they trade somebody because
You got to
it's
do
just not
something, you know?
it's
Yeah.
not doing anything for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're talking about shit, though, how about those Pistons?
25
They're
games.
really
25
stinking it up,
games.
man. What's the
Was
all-time
tonight
record?
the
Is
game
it
that they were supposed to
27?
win?
28. 28.
28?
Wasn't tonight the game that there was a potential that they were
Yeah,
supposed to win?
because Utah had
It's the
like a
Jazz.
billion players out.
Yeah.
The
They
Utah,
lost still. No
NBA
chance.
highlights thumbnail. The Pistons are Cade Cunningham and the Jazz are Kelly Olynyk.
Canadian
Olynyk
legend.
had a
Don't disrespect him.
27
Kelly Olynyk had
bomb.
27 bomb, yeah.
Don't
That's
disrespect him.
crazy. That's crazy. He was a Canadian legend.
Yeah. What else? I mean, what can you really say about them? They're terrible.
You know what? You know what's so weird though? If I just take a quick glaze over the Pistons roster, it's young, but there's some decent talent in there. I don't know how it's possible to lose 25 games in a row with that lineup.
Because you don't want to win.
I guess, but like it's just like, yeah, I guess that's
I don't
gotta be
think
it.
you can. I don't think you can want to lose that.
I was gonna say, like, if you look at this
They're doing
Pistons
it
lineup,
right now.
if you look at this Pistons lineup, they played 10 players today, and I think there's maybe one or two from the Jazz that are better than the one on the other side. Like as personal like 1v1 matchups goes, but it just for some reason they just don't try. And it's just kind of sad. I feel bad for Cade Cunningham, to be honest,
Look,
because I think he's a good player.
if
He
you're out
just
there tanking, you got to set
Yeah.
some record, you know? Why not let it be the losing streak record?
It's true.
You want to get your name in the history books.
History.
I think the Bobcats
Is that
was like
not
12.
like I know you guys talk tanking and all that, but how demoralizing is it to like I talked about the Sharks earlier this year when they lost 10 or let in 10 goals in back-to-back games. How demoralizing is that though too to be on such a long losing streak? Even like at the end of the season like oh we might get a good draft pick, but like 25 games like that's very excessive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The draft pick doesn't mean shit to the players.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
Playing on that team, you're like, okay, this is free. This is so we can get a good next year. It's
Because you're probably going to be a lot of those guys are going to be losing their job to this new guy that's going to come
That's
in.
that's the
Yeah.
other thing. And like last year, you had Wemby at the top of the draft. Who's the number one guy this year?
Zach Edey maybe. Who's
I
that?
don't know. There's
7'5"
this,
Purdue guy.
white guy at Duke.
Is that Cooper Flagg?
Cooper Flagg's still in high school though.
I think he committed. Yeah, he's not eligible for
Yeah.
the draft.
No, he'll be
But-
next year's. This year it's
college
supposed
ball.
to be. This year it could be that. There's another guy. He plays for Overtime Elite. His name's Matas Buzelis or something like that. He's supposed
But-
to go up high.
You know what I mean? Last year, you had Wemby, and everyone knew who
Yeah.
Wemby was, like,
That's the thing.
immediately.
Like, they had the generational thing happen, and then they're probably going to go a while without having another generational thing. Same with the NHL with the Bedard thing.
Yeah.
Like a generational talent that everybody talks about might not happen for a while now.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough when you didn't get Wembanyama. I mean, who knows? I don't know how many more games they would have won with Wembanyama if they got Wembanyama. Probably not many.
Probably not very many. Nope.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
I think maybe last thing in the NBA, do you want to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant making his comeback?
That was crazy.
That game
I don't
winner
know.
on the
I didn't watch the
Pelicans?
game, but I watched the highlights. Man, it was like it's like he wasn't suspended for 25 games and hasn't played an NBA game in a year. Like
They're
it's
2-0 with them. They
I
won
mean,
today. So
That the Grizzlies as a team without him were like one of the
Yeah.
worst teams in the West, and maybe they'll turn it around. I don't think they'll make the playoffs at this point or anything like that, but yeah, 2-0 with them compared to 6-19 without them. So
They
Yeah.
did beat the Pacers today, who are
They
a
did.
good team. So who knows? They might start going around 8-19. Yeah, it's not good, but you can maybe come back from that a little easier
Yeah.
than 2-28.
It's just it's
So
quite the hill to climb is the only thing.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
even know.
But
Trying to see the standings here.
they're 13th, sorry.
13th.
Uh,
To get into like a
but-
considerable playoff spot, if you go on an 8 or 9 game winning streak, you can
The-
maybe do it.
You
The
you
issue-
have to go on a winning streak.
yeah. The issue is to even hit like a 10 seed, the Lakers are already at above 500. So there's
Mhm.
quite the jump from 13, 14, 15 to 12, 11, 10.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but I mean, he's fun to watch. I'm glad he's back. He's like just the most athletic guy ever, and also like insane body control. I don't know how else to describe it. He just looks super fluid out there, I guess.
Yeah.
Really crazy body control.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's fun to watch, and that game winner on the Pelicans was pretty nuts. So
Mhm.
glad he's back. He's fun to watch. So I can go to the MLB.
I just wanted to say, or I just wanted to talk about Christmas Day games. Do you guys watch NBA on Christmas at all?
Depends.
I usually watch, the
Am I the only? Am I the only
well,
one
I just
getting
need
an
to take your
echo?
headphones out.
yeah, we're getting a ridiculous echo right
Yeah,
now.
that's my bad.
Come on, Will. You can just mute
No.
until you talk.
Okay, yeah. Do you guys watch NBA on Christmas at all? Is there still an echo?
No,
My-
not
my-
as-
I still have an
I
echo,
was
yeah.
gonna say the one game I usually watch is like Lakers, Golden State back in the day, or like LeBron versus Golden State.
Mhm.
Sounds like we're
matchup.
back.
Yeah, it is just Will with the mic. Unfortunately. Sorry to throw you under the bus, Will, but
So yeah, I would say that's one of the games I look like if I to watch a game, it's usually that game. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't watch it that often because the Raptors never get a game, which kind of sucks. But
they need if they were better, they would get a game. I wonder
well,
if
they
they've
didn't get
considered
one
that.
after they won the championship, which still
That's
kinda
also
bothers
true.
me. But maybe they just I don't know. Nobody wants to actually watch them. I have no idea.
I watched last year when Luka Doncic beat up on my glorious court jester on Christmas Day. I did watch that game.
How dare you?
Damn right he did.
You're talking about the in-season tournament champion? Is that who you're talking about? The only one in history?
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird. I wonder why Luca didn't win that tournament then. It's strange how that happened.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I will say this about NBA. I was at a bar last night and they had the Celtics and Kings game on the TV. High scoring game, and it seems like I'm seeing, even just as a casual viewer of the NBA, a lot of high scoring games lately. Has that been a trend in the NBA? Like, is that, or am I just maybe seeing all these giant scores, and am I just not getting what's going on?
Yeah, you're imagining it. This isn't real. I think it's just going to continue to be a trend where point totals go upward just now forever until history because guys are getting better at scoring. And yeah, we talked about it with Embiid, it's harder to defend now. You get dudes that foul bait and flop. And as much as we saw that anti-flopping technical rule come in, it just really hasn't been enforced as much, I don't think. So it's a combination of dudes getting better and defense getting harder to play, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like the emphasis on defense is so little now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see very many, if not really any at all, players that get drafted now or players that are still in the NBA now that are like defensive stoppers, and that's their job.
I mean, Asar Thompson, that's kind of
Yeah, but like, yeah, I guess you're labeled that, but he's not going to make it as a fantastic player being just that, if that makes sense.
I just don't. I don't think there's room on rosters for guys who can't score anymore. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
like back in the day, yeah, you could have some, big man or guard, whoever, where all they did was defend the guy that was in front of them or sit in the low post and try and get blocks. But yeah, you have to be able to score now. And maybe it's not that defense is like less emphasized. It's just that offense is becoming more emphasized. Defense is still very important, and you will have
Yeah.
dudes that uh, get drafted or find spots on teams solely because of their defense, even if they aren't as good offensively. Yeah.
What I'll say is college is still such a huge defensive emphasis.
Hmm.
So a lot of those guys coming out of college, it's huge. You can
Hmm.
tell, like, watching a college game versus an NBA game, how much different it is defensive wise.
Yeah, they do. There's a lot more pressure on ball in college for sure.
Yeah. So I think you notice more guys that are defense first in college that are made up to be defense first when they go to the NBA, and then you
Yeah.
can tell that they work on their offense way more,
Hmm.
like, after that.
Hmm.
So it's
For
interesting.
sure. I mean, I immediately think of Rudy Gobert. He's not
Yeah.
on any team because he's putting up a bunch of points.
No.
So,
But again, there's few left that are still
oh
like
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Will, do you want to talk? We've had Will on, I guess, like a timeout thing.
Will's in timeout.
You want to talk? You've got headphones now.
Yeah. I can't get my mic back in my headphones, so I don't know if it's echoing still.
No, it's not. We're good now.
No, it's not. We're good.
Okay.
You're out of timeout.
Thanks, boys. Yeah, I felt pretty excluded there. Just felt like a podcast
An
listener.
outsider.
I
You were
love the
standing at the
content.
studio
Keep it up.
window with your hands on the glass like this, just
Yeah,
watching us.
let me in. Yeah, I was gonna say, well, to that extent of defenders being on rosters, I'm like, first name that came to my mind was Ben Simmons, because we've seen what happens to a guy when he doesn't have an offensive game. Elite defender, but can't stay on the floor because you can't get a bucket, nobody respects you, and overall you're a burden to the team.
Very true. Yeah, and I
PJ
guess
Tucker. PJ Tucker was the first one I thought of.
PJ Tucker, true.
Okay.
The LeBron stopper, PJ Tucker.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess you have guys like Sabonis, who they're kind of a pylon on defense, but he makes good enough and is good enough as an offensive center that he can still find spots and start on the Kings.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I do absolutely get what you're saying. I just think, yeah, I think there's more leeway for guys who are great offensively and less good defensively than vice versa.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Because you
Yeah.
have to score points to win in the NBA, just in case you were wondering.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure.
I didn't know.
Does highest score like win 2 or something?
Yeah, that is mostly generally how it
Usually.
goes. Yeah. From what I've seen,
Yeah.
that is generally how it works. We can finish off with the MLB unless you guys got something else to say,
No.
I got nothing.
No.
Okay. So the MLB, big news today. I don't know what you'd call him, I guess. Highly touted free agent out of Japan, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's been kind of bouncing around between which team he'd go to. I knew that the San Francisco Giants were on that list, as well as the New York Yankees. Unfortunately, he has signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers on a 12-year deal for $345 million, I believe.
Oh, wow.
$325 million, sorry. I mean, it's disappointing. I said last show after the Ohtani signing that I was going to be a fan of anyone who plays the Dodgers, and now that's even more so, I'd say. I'll cheer for anybody but the Dodgers at this point. As long as they don't win, I'll be happy. Other news, there really haven't been a ton of other deals. Actually, that's not true. Right after our show last week, I kind of forgot about this. Tyler Glasnow went to the Los Angeles Dodgers as well with Manuel Margot. and then signed an extension. So Los Angeles has really kind of shored up their starting rotation. Again,
It's wor-
not a big
it's
fan.
it's World Series or bust for the Dodgers. Is
Oh,
it not?
absolutely. We said that for when they got Ohtani.
Yeah.
And now, two other
Spending a
big
billion
additions.
dollars on. Sorry, go finish it.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. $1 billion between two players
It's
is
ridiculous.
insane. And not trying to say that Ohtani or Yamamoto didn't deserve their contracts, but yeah, $1 billion split between two guys is just nuts.
Mookie Betts has a pretty big contract too, doesn't he?
Yeah, Mookie, Freddie Freeman, they have a lot of big deals on their team right now. But obviously, money isn't an issue for them, which is kind of why you'd want to see more of maybe a hard salary cap implemented outside of just the luxury tax. But they are going to get just decimated by the luxury tax, I would assume, unless they can figure something out with this Yamamoto deal. I'm not sure if it has big deferrals like Ohtani, which I don't think it does. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. Some other deals, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., former Blue Jay, agreed to a 3-year extension with the Diamondbacks, so good for him. I mean, that's kind of it. There really weren't a lot of other big names moved. Former Blue Jay Jake Lamb to a minor league deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Really, the reason I wanted to end off on the MLB segment is because now we can swear because we're not doing this live. And I've had some feelings building up for the past, well, even since last season, that I've never been able to fully express. So I just have a list of people pulled up here. Number one on my list, because this is where it all started, is fuck Rob Manfred. I hate you. John Fisher, owner of the Oakland, well, I guess now Las Vegas Athletics. Fuck you. I hate you. And then the Los Angeles Dodgers. Fuck you. And Shohei Ohtani's agent. What's his name? Trying to find him again here. Nez Balelo. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Apologies if I've mispronounced your name, sir. Fuck you too. The quote from him, which just was like taking a knife, stabbing with it, and then twisting it repeatedly. Here's his quote after the Shohei Ohtani signing. I felt really, really bad for the country of Canada, and I felt really, really bad for the Toronto Blue Jays organization. They are good people. What they had to endure, the pain, wasn't right. I felt so bad for all of them they had to go through that because it was the extreme emotional roller coaster of thinking they had him and then finding out they didn't. Yeah, hey, no shit, man. You're his agent. You're the reason he didn't go there. It's like why you'd come out with that like weird like sob story pity party for Canada after your guy doesn't go there seems strange to me and comes across as like just really weird. I didn't understand that at all. So not a big fan of that, to be entirely honest with you. Just frustrating. And maybe if some Dodgers fan is listening to this and they say, "Oh, listen, you're just a hater. You're mad that they were getting all these free agents. You didn't get them." Yeah, you're goddamn right I am. I am pissed we didn't get Ohtani. Are you kidding me? Everyone's mad they didn't get Ohtani.
Yeah.
So is misguided maybe is some of this hatred is. It's just so frustrating knowing that I mean, to be honest, it seems like the Blue Jays at this point were kind of just a pawn to drive up Ohtani's final price regardless. So if that's the case, then even more so, fuck Ohtani's agent. But yeah, just frustrating stuff right there. Feels good to get out of my system though.
I liked that rant.
Oh, it's so painful.
This went from we can swear now, guys, to I hate this list of people.
As soon as I got the endorsement and we all went first, I was like, I'm putting MLB last so we can end on that note.
Oh boy.
Alrighty, is that it then?
Yeah,
all I
I
got.
don't have anything else.
I'm good. Do you want me to run
Actually,
through?
sorry, one more thing that I forgot to mention in terms of um, off-season transactions. Andrew McCutchen back to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Kind of, I would assume like a retirement one last year, kind of the pool host thing, going back to St. Louis. I mean, yeah, I think McCutchen's going to be a Hall of Fame guy, if not very close to it. So it'll be fun to watch him back in Pittsburgh to finish out his career.
I think that covers it all then. I'll run through the gauntlet here once again. TikTok at Armchair Athletes, Instagram at The Armchair Athletes, Twitter at Chair Athletes, Armchair Athletes 196 is the YouTube, and yeah, the 196 once again. I think we've not only does the 100 represent the swears, but we're now up to 196 on the show.
Well, yeah.
Also, real quick here, what you guys think of the pop figures that I did? I was hoping you guys didn't hate them or
I
not.
thought it turned out pretty well.
No, those are dope. Yeah.
And if you're
My mom
listening,
my mom liked it.
okay.
Okay,
If you're listening at home, go look at him on Instagram.
Yeah, Taylor, I have to add. So one of your buddies had commented and said, "Oh, a Blue Jays hat. This guy's a fraud." So I'm the one that did them. I guess I'll be the one to claim responsibility. And my thing was just Taylor comes in. Jaden.
Who?
Jaden.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
So the reason why I gave you a Blue Jays hat was because I know you wear a lot of baseball caps, and so I think you've worn a Jays one before. I thought you were a Jays fan, so I put that one.
I don't really have a favorite baseball team. I've kind of
Oh, okay.
explained to most of my friends that I'm more of an individual player kind of guy.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm a huge Julio fan, so
Okay, yeah.
I would say maybe the Mariners potentially, but it's more just like singular players that I really like.
Okay.
So I wear a
He
few
loves
different
the
baseball
game.
hats. I'm not a like a super true fan. Like I will watch baseball if it's the playoffs and maybe the odd game, and that Jaden is a Yankees fan, so I have to watch a lot of those. But I'm not very partial to a team. If a baseball hat looks cool, then I'll buy it, kind of thing.
Okay.
But Julio is my favorite player in MLB, so maybe the Mariners.
Okay. And I'm sorry for giving you a Blue Jays hat then.
That's okay. It's fine. Yeah, it's okay, Clayton. I think it still kind of looked like me, so that's all that matters.
That's good.
I
Terrell,
think they're
Steelers
sick
jersey,
playing
so
that. I thought they're dope.
already. And Terrell, I tried to put your pigeon on the orange hat, but all it would generate would be an actual like pigeon sitting on top of your head.
Honestly, that would have been fine too. I wouldn't have minded that.
Yeah. Um, that's all I've got for today.
All right.
Thanks for, unless you guys have anything else to say.
I don't think so.
No.
Thanks for tuning in today. Come back next week. I think we're going to do another show probably like this next week. Not sure what our schedules will look like though, so maybe it'll be a Thursday, maybe it'll be a Friday, maybe it'll be a Sunday. Who knows?
Who knows?
I will say happy holidays. Merry
Oh, true.
Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm guessing we're probably not going to do an episode before actual Christmas.
Here.
So
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah.
Potentially Happy New Year. We don't know yet, like we just said. I think we could probably get an episode in before the New Year.
How about I was
potentially.
going to say, here's how I'll finish. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to Rob Manfred, John Fisher, and Naz Balelo. There we go. Have a good Christmas, fellas. Oh, and the entire Dodgers organization. They can also have a good Christmas.
I'll say happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody. If a show happens next week, it'll just be the OG Armchair Athletes.
Oh, right.
Out of country. Need some podcasting downtime.
He's not dedicated to the game, folks. This is why he was on timeout earlier.
Don't say that. I'll
OG
FaceTime
Armchair
from the
Athletes.
beach.
That's okay. Either way, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Merry Christmas,
Thanks
everybody.
everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening.